Guerilla Podcast Syndicate production. Each of us runs a different pace in life.
As a millennial or someone coming of age into adulthood, it's just a lot of things to process. And a lot of things that you want can't happen now because a lot of things are
In love, friendships, and our own self-worth. As we embark on these journeys, we hold the hope to learn a little more each day.
why can't I have whatever they have? And oftentimes I find myself comparing my progress, comparing what I have with other people, even like in the slyest way. It seems like it's a
As we survive and strive to be stronger.
you are really sure and aware of your being as a person and your truth, your core, your everything. Anything that you put out in the table won't be used against you.
So I'd like to welcome you all to love, growth, and freedom.
The different kinds of love that we could see in this world, and on the idea of how love is crazy and how love has different meanings for all of us.
A podcast that believes in love, inspires growth, and advocates freedom. Let me be your friend, your guide, as we all ride the crazy adventure called life. Powered by Guerilla Podcast Syndicate.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Love, Growth, and Freedom with Adrian Duarte. And hello again, and we're back again to another episode. I'm just so happy that you're here listening to me again. Thank you so much, Lovies, who's been sending me love and never-ending support. I love you. Thank you so much. I'm just happy to be here. I'm always happy to create an episode because I feel so excited to share all the things that's going on in my head. It's kind of like a self-therapy for me, and the fact that I get to help a lot of people with these thoughts, I'm just so glad. I'm just like really happy about it. You make me feel great. And I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for existing. And thank you for trying your best to improve yourself, because that's a great journey to be in. And this episode that we're going to talk about is like a help, an add-on to the help that we need when we're dealing with our setbacks. Because setbacks, again, is a normal part of our lives. And I realized that within the last 2 years, 3 years actually, since 2018 up until now, I have realized that setbacks will always be a part of our lives because it's a cycle. You know, we go through ups and downs. It's a roller coaster. Setbacks are the ones that remind you of the things that you actually have to go up for. It's like setbacks are going to bring you back down so that you can pull yourself back up higher and better and tell you what you can work on and what you need to work on. So that's a wonderful like analogy of what setbacks are. So going through, I'll just share a few stories, okay, before we go through the whole detail of what this episode is going to be about. We talk about setbacks as if like it's the end of the world most of the time. I'm like, okay, something that we didn't like or something that we wanted to go our way didn't go our way, and then we'd feel defeated and demotivated. And I realized that that's a part of it. That's a part of the cycle. And what it teaches you, the opportunity of being demotivated teaches you, is that you get to learn what motivates you. You get to learn what are the things that make you want to stand up each and every day and continue being the best version of yourself. Continue trying to learn all the ropes that you want to learn in your life. So, yeah, that's one thing that I learned about setbacks. And it feels hard when you're in the eye of the storm, when you are experiencing a setback, when you are trying to accept that kind of reality that you're not the best. You still have to learn a lot, and like everything that you planned out for yourself are falling under your feet. You'd actually feel so stressed about it, and like everything seems to be out of control. But you know what? I actually analyze it and make it like similar to metamorphosis. It felt like a metamorphosis for me. Going through so much changes in my life in the past few years, it's just so crazy. Okay, so I was outed in 2018. I lost my ex in 20, I mean, he didn't die, but I lost the relationship in 2018. And then 2019 was a year of like figuring out who I was and what I wanted to be. Not sure of what career I would actually even take. And then changes kept coming and kept going. And the only thing that like helped me survive that was to actually just keep on improving. I wired myself to learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn. Like I hated school for a time. I hated going to school. I hated learning. But then I figured out if I was learning something that I'm so excited to learn about, it doesn't become learning. Anything that you actually enjoy doing doesn't become work or learning, including this podcast, including everything that I'm doing right now. It doesn't feel like work to me at all. It just feels like it's a lifestyle that I'm so happy to be in right now. And that in turn, those things that I accomplished and those things that I am able to do now was because I understood that the setbacks that I had to face, the setbacks that I had to work through, are the ones that can make me improve myself, are the ones that can are gonna make me someone who I am happy to look at in the mirror each and every day. And I am happy right now. I am just glad, even if it wasn't my ideal self that I'm looking at, I'm just happy and content with who I became and what I came to be. I had high hopes for me. I wanted to be in a really nice big four school, but that didn't work out. So I made lemons out of lemonades and made, you know, made the best of what I had and what I could achieve at my level. And it's okay. And necessarily it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be someone so big at your age at a certain point in your life, because we all have our own pace. And right now, understanding those setbacks and realizing that those led me to where I am today, I'm just content at where I am today. And I just roll with the punches. Meaning, whenever something comes my way that I can't control and something comes my way that I can't really do anything about, but just muddle through it and fight through it, that's what I do. I fight. I like, come on, what do I have to learn? What do I have to see? And who do I have to talk to? Who do I have to learn from to get over this and become a better version of myself? Excuse me. So, we were talking about setbacks and understanding it, knowing what to improve on, and being patient with yourself. And then we did talk about what? We talked about, let's see, our fourth episode, we talked about how to realign our priorities. And that's a hard part. Realigning your priorities and figuring out what serves you and what doesn't is quite difficult because we have a lot of guilty pleasures as people. And knowing those, sometimes we just want to do it even if it's counterproductive. We want to do it even if it's somehow destroying ourselves on the inside rather than building us up. It's those kinds of things that will make you debate in your head. Is this something that you want to keep? Is this a habit that you want to do? Is this a habit that you can actually do? And guilt will come, shame will come, and doubt. Self-doubting will come. You're gonna be like, am I able to do this? Am I really gonna be someone better if I try to do this? Am I even gonna be someone who can read a book if I am not someone who reads a book growing up? All those will flood your head once you're realigning your priorities. And sometimes it can get unbearable. It can get so crazy in your head that you tend to listen to the chaos rather than yourself and your ability to actually deal with all those setbacks. Let me tell you this now. You are able to do this. You are always going to be capable of change. You just have to want it and you just have to see through it and you have to be accountable. So, on today's episode, that was a big build up. On today's episode is accountability. How do you take responsibility? Taking responsibility and having accountability in the actions that you do and the decisions you make as you go through these setbacks, as you fix yourself, as you find the path to becoming the better version of yourself each and every day. So, as we talked about it, it's a process. You're always going to feel defeated sometimes. You're always going to feel triumphant sometimes. And sometimes you're just going to feel like nothing's really changed in your life. But being accountable and taking responsibility for your actions really do shape how you're going to see a lot of things. So, let's define accountability. Accountability is the fact or condition of being accountable or responsible. Okay, how, like, taking accountability of your actions. If you've made this decision and there was a consequence, you have no one to blame but you. If you made a decision to change your life and change your habits right now and you got good results out of it, for example, bodybuilding, if you decided to go bodybuild and really go on a diet and a healthy lifestyle, There's nothing else or no one else to thank but you, because you decided to make that change and you're accountable for that decision. You are someone who has to take responsibility now. Okay, this is me. This is what I did and I'm proud of it. Or this is what I did and I own up to it. It's a mistake. Let me change it. Let me fix it. Being someone who's accountable and being responsible for your actions is a very, very good feat in this world, because people admire integrity. People admire someone who knows when they're wrong and works on it, because the world is already crazy enough. And we need people who are strong enough to admit when they're wrong, and people strong enough to fight for the things that matter in our lives. So, this episode has the goal to let us know how we could take responsibility for our actions and to follow through with everything that we've realigned to become and what we want to be. There are many ways we could encounter moments of placing the blame on things we can't control. In this episode, we'll talk about why is it important for us to take accountability and how we could ask help from others to keep us on track. So I would tackle a lot of things about accountability and responsibility here, because this is something that I'm happy about, because I've been trying to do this. I've been working on this. I'm still on the path to being accountable for most of my actions too. Like there is a challenge in doing this. I'm not going to lie, because I'm on that path too. But I just want to share this with you so that you are aware. That's the first step in everything, awareness of what you're doing and what you could do as a person. So, what does it mean to take responsibility? We have to understand all decisions we make have an equivalent effect. If we choose to stay on track, then we reap the benefits. But the moment we stray from it, know that there will be some consequences to it. So, there are so many things that I could actually relate to this sentence and this statement alone, because all the things that we do have an equivalent effect. That is the law of the universe or everything. Everything has anything. We reap what we sow. So if you're good today and then you're good to people around you, you'll reap the benefits that people will find you naturally nice and gravitate towards you, even if it wasn't your intention. As long as you decided it was a true and genuine act of selflessness or goodness, people will gravitate towards that and will pick up on that. And that's the equivalent effect of your decision to be kind and good today. Now, if you're someone who chose to be rude today, mean today, and people became that back to you, that was an equivalent effect of your action towards them. That's a thing. That's a golden rule that keeps happening in this world. So processing it that into something that you're working on with yourself. I know that you have goals. Everyone has goals. And for example, if you are a bodybuilder, if you're someone who's trying to, okay, let's relate it to reading. If you're someone who's trying to read, if you're someone who's trying to develop a habit of reading, you try to dedicate a day or a moment in your day to read a book. And then okay, you went on good 5 days, consecutive 5 days of reading a book. That's wonderful. You enjoy doing it for 5 days. And then on the sixth day, you feel like you don't want to read a book, or you were too busy to just pick up the book and read it. Now you have two decisions there. You either continue pushing and reading the book on that sixth day, even if you're tired, you just forced yourself. And if you did, you'd actually stimulate your head, your mind, and you'd develop a more like, okay, a sense of fulfillment that you were able to push through and reading that day, even if you were tired. Or you can just succumb to the tiredness and say, I can't read today. I'll just make it up tomorrow. Now, the consequences of that is that you're gonna have a harder time to read the next day, because you're like, well, I kind of skipped yesterday. Might as well skip today if I'm too busy and I'm too tired. You'll end up making more excuses. That's the consequence of it. But if you did read it, the equivalent effect is that you're gonna be more inspired to read the book. So know that these two things, these equivalent effects of your decision, could happen to you at any points in your life when you make a decision. And are you ready to stand up for it? Are you ready to say, okay, it's my fault. Okay, it's my fault that I didn't get to read this anymore and lost my momentum. I'll try to do it again and go back to it. Or you just say, oh, I'm so tired. It make excuses and blame. Those are the things that could happen whenever you do something or decide on something. That is taking responsibility. You have to just say, okay, it was my fault. I made that conscious decision. Even if I know there are adverse effects, I made that conscious decision and I will stand by it and I will take the consequences if there is. Okay? So that's taking responsibility. The reason why it's important to take responsibility is because it's also a mental practice to keep ourselves in check. If there are no one looking, or if there was no one looking around you, and you're in an honesty store, would you like get the stuff, get the thing, get an item and not pay for it? So if you think you are gonna do that, well, you have to practice yourself keeping yourself in check, keeping yourself understanding about what your responsibility is as a person. But coming back to that, the reason why it's important to take responsibility because it helps us practice to keep ourselves in line with the things that we want to do in our lives. So if you have big goals, if you have goals that you want to be a doctor, you want to be someone like this, you have to be responsible enough to keep yourself in a zone where you know what your actions are gonna be, and you are able to actually make good and bad decisions altogether, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna allow it to take control of your life. And if you're not practicing mental or keeping yourself in check, you'd actually look at your life and be like, okay, I'm forced and pressured to do this because of my friends. I'm forced to do this and that and whatever. A lot of the things and a lot of your decisions are externally, what do you call it, externally influenced, and that's what we're not wanting. So taking responsibility also gives you that like safeguard that you are able to keep yourself in line with the goals and priorities that you have in your life. We can make the conscious decision of not doing the thing we need to do, and that's okay as long as you're ready to deal with what comes next. Taking responsibility means you are to be held accountable for the decisions you've made, and no one is to blame for the effects of whether if it's good or bad. So you can't blame anyone. If you chose to be a bad person today, if you chose to be irresponsible today, make sure that you are able to sustain and take in the consequences of your action. For there are so many things. There's so many examples in taking responsibility. For let's go back to college. I have a college, like let's give a college example. Back in college, you either have every Thursdays in CSB, you either have a choice to go out on a Thursday night, happy Thursdays, and suffer the consequences of having a hangover the next day and going to class, or completely missing class altogether, or not drinking on a Thursday night, being a boring person, not a boring person, being a KJ from your to your friends or whatever, and you still get to go to class. Now, sometimes in classes, there are surprise quizzes, surprise requirements that you don't know. And you chose to go out party that night, and then you were able to go to school hungover. Now there was a quiz, there was an exam that you need to answer, and then you bombed it. You did not know the answers to those exams. If you're someone who knows how to take responsibility, you're gonna say, okay, that was on me. I'm not gonna do this again. I'm gonna do better. Next time that I'm gonna have a quiz or next time I'm gonna do happy tea, I'll make sure that my requirements or everything that I need to know about this subject is in my brain and I can surpass any exams or quizzes that come my way every Friday, even if it's a surprise one. Now that is taking responsibility. Or some people would react like this. Well, why did he have to do that? Why did the professor have to give a surprise quiz? That's not allowed anymore. DepEd, blah, blah, blah. DepEd like this. That, like, or Ched, blah, 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 like this. Blah, blah, blah. That person puts the blame on the circumstances and on the teacher or the professor of why did they do that. And now that's not taking responsibility. You're the one who made the decision to go out that Thursday night. You knew that you had a class. Whether they would have a surprise quiz or not, you knew that you had a class. And which was the responsible thing to do? To not go out or to just mildly go out or whatever, lesser evils, and then go to school ready and prepared. So you see the difference there in taking responsibility. And what do you think will make you a better person? What will make you a better person is taking the responsibility and doing better. So the next time it happens, you're ready, you're prepared, and even if you decide to make a bad decision that night, or a semi bad decision that night, you're still able to stand up, do the things that you need to be doing, and still be responsible and all the like. So there is that fine line between taking responsibility and just blaming it on other people. Now, why? Why do we need to take responsibility? It's such a chore. Taking responsibility is such an adult thing. Why do you think so? Because with being able to comprehend what's in your control and what you can take the responsibility for makes you a better person. How does that make you a better person? If you know the decisions and the intentions between your decisions and all the likes, let me just drink, calm down. Now that's ASMR for you. Okay. Sorry. So, with being able to comprehend what's in your control and what you can take responsibility for makes you a better person. So, for example, if you have power to know that your decision is actually going to cause this kind of level of stress, this kind of level of stress, and you have that conscious decision to make, it just gives you that power. It makes you a better person because you analyze and understand what you have to go through. And then if you're going to go through that, you already have a next plan in step or a backup plan that you're going to do if ever things go south. My example for this is I'll give you more of that later, but it gives you more confidence in yourself and your abilities. It strengthens your convictions on your own principles and have better relationship with people around you. When you are taking responsibility for your decisions and choices, an example of this one, when you ask your friend for an advice for someone, for someone that you love, that hurt you, that cheated on you or whatever, and they're gonna give you an advice na leave that person, don't go back to that person, but sometimes they're gonna be stubborn enough to say that you are what? You are someone who would still go back to that person, even if that person told you even if your friend told you not to go back anymore. Come on, he hurt you. Why would you still go back? And a lot of us will be stubborn. And then a lot of us, when that happens and we come back to the person that we kind of like, the person that hurt us, we're gonna be like, oh, why did I go back? Blah blah blah. And we'll actually dread the consequences. We'll dread how it made us feel, and we're gonna be like, I wish we followed your advice. A lot of people would do that over and over again. And if you realize the people around you who's giving you your advice on that will actually feel tired of reminding you that, okay, come on now, let's get it together, you're doing this. When you're able to take responsibility, I did that once. You're gonna heed the advice of your friends, but you're gonna know your limits and like telling them and trying to blame them or ask them why it happened to you because you already know why it happened to you. That's how taking responsibility looks like. For me, for example, my ex cheated on me. And then my reaction was, when I figured it out, my reaction was, what do you want to do with us? I know the repercussions of my question. I know the repercussions of my decision on that. Okay? I would risk myself of doubting and being insecure of the relationship if he ever wanted to be with me again. I would doubt everything about the relationship and he would have to reassure me and I would have to go through hell on that. I knew that. I knew what I was taking up. So there's no one else to blame but me. And I stood up for that decision. When I asked that question, my ex didn't know what to answer. And then that's when I knew. I was like, okay, well, then that's my responsibility now. I asked the question and he didn't know the answer. He didn't have an answer. His silence was the answer. I know what to do next. I took responsibility. I took the power and say, I'm going to walk away because I deserve someone who's sure of me and I don't want to be with someone who's not sure of me. So I walked away and then took responsibility towards that. That was my decision. It wasn't his. He didn't know what he wanted. I know what I wanted. I walked away. And since I was able to take responsibility for that action, I never did once question myself, what if I stayed longer? What if I stayed more? What if I asked him to work it out with me? I did not ask my what ifs because I knew my decision and I knew the repercussions of my decision and the effects of my decision. So I did just that. So if you take responsibility, you actually feel more confident with yourself, with the things that you think is going on in your head. You kind of develop this sense of triumph and pride that, okay, whatever the decision that I'll make, I know that I can handle this And I would. And I'm not gonna blame anyone for that. If you're someone who takes responsibility like that, trust me, people would be like, wow. They would actually you say, wow, that's something that you kind of really, that sets you apart. If you know how to take responsibility, that sets you apart. People who take responsibility attracts the same people and is found to be less toxic because they are better aware of what's going on within themselves and the world around them. See, if you are someone who takes responsibility and don't put blame on the others, this could be in any aspect of your life. For example, in work, and you have a group mate who doesn't work, and you're gonna be like, well, oh, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, and you're gonna blame him if you fail. Yeah, you could blame that person, but there's also another way to deal with that. That you could have made a decision to just cut that person off of the group and dealt with the social consequences of it rather than the academical consequences of it. There were so many decisions in that, but you have to stand by with your decision. And if you're someone who knows how to just do that and take responsibility of your own life and everything that you're doing, you would know who are the people that you should cut off and who are the people that you should surround yourself with. Because they make you a better they make you a better version of yourself. That's the best part of it. When you are someone who takes responsibility, you attract the same people around you who knows how to take responsibilities for their actions and not blame you when something goes wrong. Even if you put out the disclaimer, people who don't know how to take responsibility, they'll blame you. They'll still blame you every freaking time they have the chance to. Lastly, it improves your decision making. It allows you to weigh things properly and stand up by your decisions. Oh, that's the most wonderful part about taking responsibility. You get to trust yourself more in making decisions in your life. Sometimes it's surprising when you're practicing this, sometimes it's surprising that you are able to make a decision like this, a life changing decision. So, yeah. I really hope that things that I've been talking about right now is helping you understand why taking responsibility is so important and how is it going to help you with your setbacks. So when you take responsibility, this is important because if you are dealing with the setbacks in your life and you're working on it each and every time that you do stuff like developing your small habits and working on this goal, for example, in the job that you have, your let's pretend you're a social media manager and your goal every day is to actually provide good content, quality content for and quality captions each and every day, at least five, and you don't do it because you just feel like, okay, I can do it the next day, I can do that. You have to be aware that if you do that, it's gonna, damage your reputation as a social media manager. And there is that. If you know how to take the responsibility between those things, you know that it's not right to do that. And you know that if you do that, you have to face the consequences and you're not gonna blame people or anyone. So knowing this, knowing how to take responsibility gives you this strength and understanding and still overcoming the setbacks that you're working on, especially on those little steps, reaching for that goal and those steps that you are working on that the setbacks had shown you. The setbacks have shown you to improve on and the things that you need to work on. So this is important. Now, before we go on to our next part of the podcast, thank you for listening. This is AD. We're gonna have a break and yeah, see you in a while.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
And welcome back to this episode of Love, Growth, and Freedom with Adrian Duarte. Okay, so now we are talking about how to take responsibility. We covered why we should take responsibility and what taking responsibility is like. Now let's go into the big games and the big leagues. Woo! How to take responsibility. When making decisions, you have to weigh the pros and cons. Ask yourself, are you ready for whatever comes your way when you make this decision? Now think about that. Before you're gonna do anything that's gonna damage any progress that you have, anything in your life, actually, any decisions you're gonna make, if there are pros and cons to that, I'd like you to take a minute and pause and weigh in if it's worth the trouble or if it's worth the thing that you're gonna make. And if there are any consequences to that, you have to be ready to deal with that. Ask yourself, are you ready to take responsibility for the consequences of the action and the decision that you're gonna choose to do? Yes. Okay, so now, Are you able to say, okay, guys, this is all on me? I won't blame this on anyone if this goes south. If you can say that, then you're fully sure and you're ready for all of it, then go and do it. Now, taking responsibility, an example of this one, though also naman, is going to work hungover. Now, that's one I think everyone would know. I, if you know how to take responsibility, meaning that you are able to muddle through such struggles and consequences after doing a bad decision or after choosing the irresponsible route. There was twice of a time, don't copy me, there was twice of a time that Valentine's Day of 2019, I drank. That was a Wednesday or Thursday. It was a, no, I know, it was a weekday. And then I drank until 2 a.m. That was the limit. It was a slightly irresponsible night. I kind of got a little drunk, a little more drunk than I intended to. And then I was hungover, then I have to go to work. And work entails a lot of social energy and a lot of noise. So I was a little hungover. I was just like ringing in my ears and all the like. Now, I had major decisions to make. Do I call in sick for work or do I just push through it and fight it? As the responsible Capricorn in me, I went to work slightly hungover and I'm like, okay, because I have to stand up, I have to take responsibility. I chose to drink that night. I chose to celebrate Valentine's night with my single friends and I, yes. So, yeah, I had to fight. Then I actually made the conscious decision that okay, I'm ready to go to work hungover. Okay, I'm gonna fight for that. I'm fine. I'm gonna muddle through that. So I took responsibility for it without letting other things of my responsibility go to waste. The only thing that I had to face was the hungover. I was hungover. So those are the things that you can actually like make do with. But that's how you take responsibility. Before I made that decision, that conscious decision of drinking out, I was like, okay, okay, that's it. All the likes. But yeah, so that's how you take responsibility. Weigh in. If are you able to deal with it? Are you able to mitigate the consequences or are you able to take in the consequences that your action is going to make? Think about that first. Now, one of my favorite parts in taking accountability with what you do and taking responsibility. No man is an island is true. You know, in everything that we do as people in our lives, we don't really know if we're doing something wrong if no one is looking at us, if there was no mentor to see what we're doing kind of wrong, and there are things that we need to improve on in our lives. External people need to see that. And if they do see something, and if they truly care for you, they would actually tell you about it and they will not judge you for it, but they will just tell you and be like, maybe you have to change this. These people in your lives you should keep them because they're real, okay? They're genuine and they really do care for you. If people do care for you in that certain way, keep them. Come on now, keep them. So, um, with that being said, a lot of the things that's a part of our lives, you don't see it because we're the ones on the internal side of it. Okay, we're the ones who's trying to ruminate from the inside and see the world through our eyes. And sometimes people see us from the outside and they see certain traits and certain things in our lives that may not be helpful for us, and they are happy enough and kind enough to tell you about it. Now, can be your accountability buddies. When dealing with changes and growth like this, it's recommended that you find a mentor, a buddy that would help you keep in line with your goals. So if you are someone who's experiencing a setback on a certain aspect in your life, financially, socially, mentally, or if you're dealing with addictive behavior, you having someone to talk to about these things, having someone to tell them about your goals in life will help you keep in line with your goals and things that you need to work on. That's why there are master classes. That's why there are mastermind meetings. If you talk to people who are in the industry of financial advisors, entrepreneurs, social media experts, and all the like, they meet up with like minded people that probably is their accountability buddy. They meet up with like minded people and they talk about their goals with each other and help each other support that kind of goal. They bring each other up. They put together this kind of thing where, okay, this is your goal. Have you done with that? They check in on you with that certain goal that you're doing. If you have these people around you, if you have accountability buddies, it's way easier to keep track of the things that you're doing. And it makes you happy to talk about that certain thing that you're working on with the same people who are also in a journey that's improving themselves. So if you have those people, hang on to them. Find people who's willing. Maybe one person is okay. Let me give you an example. I have an accountability buddy. He's a really nice friend of mine. He's been on this podcast, and he and I had like discussions of him drinking too much alcohol, and he wanted to stop. And I'm like, okay, I'll help you out. What do you want? You can message me whenever you feel like drinking alcohol, and all the likes, and he does. And now on the other end, my end, I tell him that if I feel insecure, if I feel like been thinking of destructive thoughts and whatever, I send him a message and then we talk about it and we deal with it. So having him around, having each other around, we were able to curb our like destructive behaviors and habits together. And I'm just proud of that. And having those accountability buddies, I even did that with another friend of mine, Trisha, if you've met her. I think she did an episode with me here. Yeah, she did an episode with me here about Thank You Friends. Trisha and I naman had poetry readings. We had that every week so that we just wanted to express ourselves because we both write, and she's an extremely talented writer. I love how she writes. And she doesn't really share that much with a lot of people. So I'm like, I decided, okay, why don't we do it with each other? You know, we inspire ourselves with words and goals, and we really just check in on each other. So she is like an accountability buddy that I have. We talk about like goals in our lives and like what we're working on all the time. So having those buddies around you who really truly care and genuinely want you to succeed, it's really helpful because they keep you in line with also the things that you wanna take in, you know, and they remind you to take accountability and responsibility for the decisions you make. They're not gonna tell you and they're not gonna coddle you and say, "Oh, it's okay, it's gonna." They're gonna say, "Yeah, it is okay, but it was your hell decision. It was your decision." So yeah, if this is someone, if you can find an accountability buddy, do it. This could be someone you share the same passions with and the like. Tell them, you start with telling them your goals and your step. Message them when you're feeling like you're falling off the wagon of improvement that you're working on or the things that you're working on of your responsibilities, and do that with your buddy and vice versa as well. You have to be that person for them as well. Have a check and balance. I know that a lot of the things we do in life can be done alone, but always better with somebody who can help you. For example, if you're overspending, I have this also with my roller skating friend. Shout out to my friend, love you, Rax. So she's an awesome, she's my skate BFF. Then we've met through roller skating, and then we are spending so much on roller skates, and it's an expensive one. And then we decided to say, okay, fine, let's have a thing that when you are gonna buy something, you're gonna have to tell me, because if you're gonna buy it, you're gonna have to buy me something new too. Like, it's something like to chain us down from not buying more stuff. So it actually helps quite a few times where we message each other, do we need this? Do we really need this? It's really good to bounce off ideas with someone that really is in your accountability sphere. So having those, it's gonna be good for your mental health that you don't have to deal with things alone, because you don't really have to. You shouldn't. You're supposed to have people around you. It doesn't, like a lot of people say, this is so much misconceptions on like relationships. People would say, when people, a lot of people bash single lovers and say, I'm okay not to marry someone, I'm okay not to, and they're like, no man is an island, no one can ever be alone. And they only just relate it to romantic relationships. But why aren't you relating it to the people around me? I have so much relationships that I tend for that I kind of like don't need one more person significantly to just be there, to be the one person. I mean, it's great to find that. I would love to have that. I'm believing that we all deserve that kind of love, but I don't think it's fair to discredit the relationships that we have around. Yeah? Okay, so with this and with that and all those things, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope that this episode gave you a lot of bubbles. And I kind of like look back on it, I really do have like a lot of points that come on, it's just me ruminating on a lot of stuff. I just feel like I haven't done justice to the episode, and I hope I did. So thank you so much for listening. This is 80 of Love, Growth, and Freedom. You can follow me on Fresh FM Adrian on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, if you have any more questions, if you have anything that you want to talk about, please do let me know in any of my socials so that I can just put it down and see, especially on TikTok. If you have a topic that you want, put a Q&A there and say, okay, I want this topic on your podcast. Let's talk about it. And if you have any guests that you would like, if you want to guest, please do let me know and tell me the topic that you want to talk about, because I'd love to have people up on my podcast. Now, without further ado, I'm going to end this episode with another message of love. You guys are awesome. You are amazing. Just remember that whatever you're working on right now, know that as long as you take responsibility and as long as you have realigned your priorities and just work on it, putting in the work, you don't really have to worry about a lot of stuff, because the universe will actually just fall into place in your lap when you're working on it. It's like when you pray for something, you don't just wait for it to happen. You try, you actually make it happen, you know? It doesn't just fall on your lap. You work hard for these things and opportunities will come knocking your way. So, yeah, follow me on that. And the next episode, our final episode for this season, is gonna talk about getting ready for the long haul. Because doing this, working on yourselves, does not end in a 6-month period. It doesn't end on 2 to 5 years. It doesn't end ever. Self-improvement is a constant practice. You are a lifelong learner. So I will prepare you for the long haul. So I'll see you again on the next episode with love. This is AD. Goodbye.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or via RSS. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if you want to know more, check out www.guerillapodcast.com.au or guerillapodcast.com.ph. A Guerilla Podcast Syndicate production.